quick thing before we start the video. Please don't use this as a way to diagnose yourself. Everybody on the spectrum is different, and these are all my opinion. Also, I begin stuttering in this, and my speech impediment becomes more prominent, so please don't make fun of me for that. Okay, enjoy the video, bye. Hi, hello, my name is Cyrus, or Sid, you can call me either, I don't really care. Fun fact, I'm autistic. Shocker! If you follow me on any of my socials, or have seen my autobiographical comic, this should just be a simple fact to you. Even if you don't know me that much, it might be obvious to some of you guys just by looking at me. Now, why am I explaining this? Well, as a neurodivergent person, it's very important to me to see neurodivergent characters in media. It speaks to me in a way that it's okay to be myself. There's nothing wrong with me. Recently, we have seen some good representation in media like Lucina from The Owl House, Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and more. We have also seen characters in media who are often seen as neurodivergent but aren't entirely confirmed by the creator. This, my friends, is what we call neurodivergent coded characters. And trust me, there's many of them, and I could get into detail on all of the characters I personally see as neurodivergent. But we are getting into one specific character that has really stood out to me in a very special way, that hit close to home to the small kid who had a traumatic childhood with being bullied and treated like a burden to society, being told that I am unable to do anything. That is Cilantro from the Investigators book series made by John Patrick Reed and its spin-off series, Agents of S.U.I.T, which was co-written by Christopher Hastings and Pat Lewis. There are so many good topics already brought up in the series. I'm surprised it doesn't have as much attention as other sources of media because this really teaches some touchy topics to kids in good ways. For example, Brash, a character in Investigators, deals with an intense traumatic event and throughout the series learns to recover from it. And guys, his story has brought me tears to my eyes. But I think you should read it for yourself to see. Once again, we are focusing on the side character, Cilantro, who happens to be the lead role in the first Agents of S.U.I.T book and plays a very significant role throughout the spin-off series. Going back to representation in media, we have seen quite a lot. Some good and some questionable, some that handle neurodivergence with care, and some that give harmful stereotypes to individuals. Not every autistic person likes trains. I mean, I do, but that's not the point of this video. We are focusing on Cilantro, not steam engines. Cilantro is not only autistic coded, but is an incredibly good representation of neurodivergent people, and I think she deserves more attention. So without further ado, let's dive into my analysis of Agents of S.U.I.T as an autistic individual. Alright, so Cilantro is an orange chameleon that works at S.U.I.T headquarters, and when we first meet her in Off the Hook, she is a junior agent that makes training simulations for agents. Right off the bat, we can see that she's different. She is a complete outcast from the rest of the Agents of S.U.I.T, even being straight up ignored, and this obviously makes her kinda sad. So she tries to become a villain but ultimately decides to go back to S.U.I.T because she knows that isn't what her heart desires. She ends up telling Mango about how she felt and gains the courage to go out into the field and help thwart the villains, which in the end gets her promoted to field agent. Which leads us to the first Agents of S.U.I.T book. Before I get into the book, I want to talk about why some people see Cilantro, in my personal opinion, as autistic. I have a list of traits that often relate to being on the spectrum. She has an odd way of communicating, she comes off as blunt or socially awkward, she seems to become really happy when there is a topic she loves like detective work or being in space, which can be seen as a special interest or hyperfixation. Not only that, but she gets extremely hyper-focused whenever she is doing her detective work, wanting to take it very seriously no matter how small the mission may seem. She does this thing where she puts her hand on her head a lot and waves her arms around, which could be considered a stim. She can be impulsive or quick to thinking, Sometimes that is good, as she appears to be somewhat of a savant with her thinking, and sometimes that can be a bad thing. She is shy, oftentimes. Shyness can relate to neurodivergence, as it can be hard for a neurodivergent person to communicate with others. Her turning invisible power could be depicted as a shutdown in some way. She does have a crash out in the Agents of S.U.I.T book, which could be considered a sensory overload or meltdown of some sort. Speaking of sensory, we don't know much about her sensory experience, as there isn't many scenes that could cause a sensory reaction from her, but it's okay to assume that she might have an aversion to some things. She seems to get really overwhelmed when she's in crowds, and that's all we know. She has linear thinking, attention to detail, like I said earlier about her having some sort of savant. The list goes on. Her stutter in the promo could also count as a trait. I will add a little side note. She is said to have an interest in making puzzles, paintball, and Splatoon, which can also be considered hyperfixations. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if she hyperfixated on Splatoon, considering that she likely makes fanfictions about it. I wanted to tell these traits beforehand so we could get a gist of her autism coding before getting into Agents of S.U.I.T, which carries an important lesson about being yourself and self-acceptance. And we could have a better understanding of the allegory in this book. Okay, now, let's get into Agents of S.U.I.T. Okay, Agents of S.U.I.T is the first book in the spin-off series and focuses on Cilantro. Shortly after she becomes a field agent, she gets right to work with solving missions. She is taking it very seriously. Well, except for the fact that she isn't wearing her vest. That is very important as it carries gadgets and that can help catch the crook. She has a reason for not wearing it because it's going to stunt her chameleon powers. Whether she wants to wear it or not, she gets caught for not wearing it. But all hope is not lost for her, as she is sent to a new department, Inspector Vague's, aka Ivy's department. Cilantro is struggling with this at first, as Vague is being vague. Ivy sends her on a mission in a cornfield with a character named Monocle, a technician in S.U.I.T that has the job of fixing the place up. Actually, she was there to support Cilantro, but her fixing the place is also important to the other books, so that's something. Cilantro goes out on the field to solve her mission and finds out that there are crop circles on the field and there's likely aliens. As the mission progresses, Cilantro struggles with solving the mission as every plan leads her to a dead end, as she begins to fall into a slumber after counting the sheep. Not only that, but her having to wear her vest is also not helpful, as it stunts her abilities. Plus, the demands of following the rules when she has her own way of doing things and thinking is throwing her off. Eventually, she does what her heart tells her and takes off the vest in order to continue the mission and actually do the things the way she wants. She finds out that the sheep were the ones causing the crop circles, all because the sheep didn't like how they were being controlled by their caretaker Milford, who kept applying strict rules to them like they were toddlers. Cilantro and the sheep, specifically a character named Zeb, end up becoming friendly, as they both bond over the idea of not wanting to be controlled. But when everything seems okay, there is actual aliens known as the Throng that come down because of the crop circles and start an international alien invasion. Because Monocle noticed Cilantro's struggle earlier with wearing a vest, she makes a new one for her that helps her camouflaging abilities, camouflaging not only her but the entire flock. Cilantro is able to make it to the mothership with only her, Zeb, and a burglar she caught earlier in the book named Ripper. She decides to take it upon herself to hack the mothership, acting as a leader of a Throng and telling them to follow their heart for once and do their own thing. It isn't the Throng way or the wrong way. The Throng way is the wrong way. Cilantro is able to escape the ship before the aliens change their minds, and upon coming back to S.U.I.T, is rewarded by being promoted to Star Field Agent for her bravery. Turns out, Ivy being vague was a way for Cilantro to do things her own way without needing to follow the expectations of others. Zeb is promoted to Junior Agent, and Cilantro finds herself happy and content, finally being able to accept herself and be herself. Now, isn't that a story? Upon reading this for the first time, there were so many moments where I had to set down the book and just reflect on things, which I'll get into in a little bit. Throughout this book, Cilantro not only deals with the conflict of wearing a vest, but not being able to think in her own special way. The thing that got her to be a field agent in the first place. She's conflicted with emotions on their way or the highway, the throng way or the wrong way, like it's wrong to be different. Cilantro realizes that no, she doesn't need to be the same as everybody else. She doesn't need to follow the expectations society has on her because that isn't her. Cilantro's moment communicating with the sheep is not only a moment of figuring out the mystery, but a moment of clarity to Cilantro. She realizes that she shouldn't be controlled by people around her that tell her doing things differently is wrong. She shouldn't strive for the acceptance of others. She should strive for the acceptance in herself, as only then will you truly be happy if you embrace who you are. Only then will you find people who actually accept you. Even if people around her see her as weird and crazy, that is who she is. No matter how hard she tries, that part of her will never go away. And instead of hiding it and trying to fix it, like people around her say, she should accept it. And look where that got her. She ends up being a star field agent. She stops an entire alien invasion because she was being herself. This also comes into play with the whole alien thing, and I really like how it comes into play. A common trope in media for disabled people is to feel alienated from society. Cilantro has no expectation, as the majority of people around her tell her it isn't okay to be herself. However, the aliens tell her the same exact thing. It kind of brings the idea that there are so many differences in this universe. Whether you feel like an alien or not, you are just you, and that's okay. It's also important to focus on characters like Monocle and Zeb. It's implied that Monocle seems to be physically disabled, as she is often seen on a floating workstation, likely indicating that she cannot move without it. However, unlike what a lot of people in today's society would think, she is incredibly smart and does a lot for S.U.I.T headquarters and Cilantro. With Zeb, he is shown to be a rebellious sheep that doesn't follow the expectations of Milford's rules. He definitely also fits into the lesson of being yourself, though I don't think it's in a neurodivergent perspective. I think he's an allegory for something else. But I could be wrong. For the people who don't already know this, I didn't have the best childhood. In a lot of my elementary school life, I was horribly bullied and ridiculed by teachers and students alike. Even today, in my high school, I am sometimes still made fun of, though it isn't as bad as it was in elementary school. I was told that I can't do anything, that I was dumb, that I was a mistake, and a burden. And that affected me. It made me want to fix whatever was missing inside of me, when all along there was nothing missing. The only thing that was really missing was a self-acceptance. The trauma I experienced when I was younger affects me even today, but I've learned that people cannot just tell me to not be myself. They can't change who I am as a person. Who are they to say I shouldn't act or think in that way? I'm autistic, but that doesn't make me any less or any more. That just makes me different. And it's okay to be different. When I read this book, I remember I just kind of sat there with the lesson as it came full circle. The way I looked at the beginning page for a solid minute when it said, "For those who stand out and those who blend in." I wish I had this book when I was younger, because younger me was absolutely going through it. I didn't like who I was. I didn't understand why I couldn't fix myself. I didn't understand why I existed. If this book had existed when I was younger, it would have been a big hug to my younger self. It would have been a reminder that there is nothing wrong with me. There is something wrong with the people who have hurt me for not respecting my differences. This book really is what pushed me to start my journey to healing and accepting myself for who I am. There were so many things that got me to stand up for myself, and I could only imagine how it would have been if I hadn't read this book. Representation in media will continue to be a thing to the end of time. Neurodivergent coded stories will continue to be part of literature and will not only teach society about the acceptance of people around us, but also teach the very kids who are seen as weird or different that there is nothing wrong with them. If you haven't already read Agents of S.U.I.T or Investigators, I suggest you guys read it for yourselves, as there are so many topics in the series that have genuinely touched me and so many other people. I'd like to give a thank you to John Patrick Green for his support in making this video. It feels really special to see a creator be so accepting of other people's perspectives, and there should be more people like him. Alright folks, that's all. So long, stay safe, and remember you are loved. Bye-bye.